Sticking with quarterbacks for a second, just in the short time you've had to work with them in the offseason, where have they begun to show some progress, and what more will be the points of emphasis during your training camp here?
Well, the fundamentals, it's an everyday, all-day deal. I mean, just being in the meetings, I think Aaron is doing an exceptional job just sharing the past experiences and as we're able to go through the quarterback school. And so, just all the little tidbits, and, the guys are definitely soaking it up. So that's an ongoing, it never ends, so, that's why you do it. It's the baseline of everything we do as far as playing from the pocket. So, the young guys are doing a good job there, but they need reps. They need 7-on-7s. They need the group work. Just the progression of the drill work showing up into the competitive work. So, this is obviously a critical time of year for them, and, the preseason will be big for the young guys.
Mike, you mentioned mock game. Is that what you said today?
Right.
What does that really entail?
It's just trying to hit all the different situations that occur throughout the game. You have a primary emphasis. For instance, it's cut into two phases. The first phase is game management and special teams. One of the things throughout the years is, through experience, you get down to the first preseason game, and your boundary communication, your boundary management is something that you usually just work on right before you go out. So it's a 90-man roster. So my point is we're hitting those things now. I don't think you can do enough situational work, the awareness of it, the importance of stressing the defense with the personnel group, having the right personnel groups, just all the little things that go into the makeup of a game. Then you get into the second part of it, and like today's second part is really review of the last 2 days. So it's a format I've always tried to kind of go one or two, do 2 installs, review, 2 installs, review. So it kind of matches the workload capacity of what you're looking for. As far as like next week, we'll have 2 padded practices, review. Then we'll have 3 padded practices, which will be the biggest stress point, and it's more going into the Saturday night scrimmage in downtown. So just, it's a flow that really works physically, mentally, and it really gives you a chance to hit all the situations.
Mike, Spencer Anderson and Dylan Cook have played a lot of roles here. Through OTAs, minicamp, first couple of days, I understand there haven't been pads on yet. What have you seen from those two on the right side?
Well, I'd just like to recognize your first point. It's an excellent example of what I think we talked about the other day. You talk about position flex. Those guys define that very well, and it's a real credit to them, what they've done in the past and how we view them, their ability to play multiple positions, but also give them a chance to compete to win a job, win a starting job. So I've been very impressed with their work, and the O-line and D-line, I'm sure they're looking forward to getting past tomorrow's practice, because then you get into pads and things can get into the real stuff for them. But I think both those guys have done an excellent job so far.
Mike, so far, Roman's gotten a lot of work, caught a lot of passes. Aaron's gone his way a lot. How have you kind of seen Roman kind of evolve throughout just the short time you've had with him, and how has he taken to these opportunities?
I just look back to Roman, and like a lot of things in life. I look at him with a first impression. Frankly, him and I were walking up from the meeting or driving back from the meeting yesterday, and we were talking about the Michigan workout. When he came out, I was at the workout, and we we're talking about the Harbaugh family and just what an impressive team it was, and how impressive that whole workout was, and him coming out of college, and then and going back to when I arrived here, we had a conversation on the phone. He wanted to introduce himself and talked about his first year, and really this really hasn't changed since then. I said, I need you to be a multiple position player. I said, I want to be able to line you up both inside and outside. He's done a hell of a job inside. Frankly, I'm going to, haven't even talked to him yet about this, but I think we can start working a little bit more outside too, because his vertical speed and his ability to, we call it the Audubon out there on the numbers. I think has an excellent skill set for that also too. So, but he's done a really nice job. He can line up at X, Z, and F, and so far he's done exactly what we asked.
Anyone else?
Mike, Travis Homer, it looks like he's has a lot of leadership duties on the special teams so far. What did you know about him from his special teams work in the past to kind of hand him the personal protector job right now in the first day?
Well, I mean, we're working reps and so forth. I think obviously his history is he's a veteran special teams player. But yeah, once again, I'm looking forward to getting into the padded work, and that personal protector is important because obviously the identification responsibility, and you do want an experienced player in there, But we got some good young guys. We got some young guys that will have an opportunity in there also.
Mike, I know pads aren't on yet, but how do you anticipate the guys in your previous experience being able to bring some of that physicality without full tackle?
Yeah, I think I must have done a bad job with our practice will be physical. I think the only thing that's different is we don't want to go to the ground and risk injury, but I think everything else will look the same.
Mike, there's been some opportunities for Asante Samuel Jr. In camp, and he's been noticeable. What's jumped out to you about him, and could he be a guy that could work into the mix during the season?
I know personally I'm counting on him. It's just like anything in this league. You come into a new job, new situation, especially as a head coach. There's individuals that obviously compete against his father, but he's frankly been one of my favorite players, since I arrived here. I just love the way he works. He's extremely physical. His ball skills are off the charts. That's a big thing that's something I really look for in defensive backs. We want to take the ball away, catch the flash of the ball, and he has all that. And he's done, he's been here every single day, off-season program. He's had 2 really good practices so far. He really had his first day. He did a really nice job. So I think the young man's a hell of a football player.
What's it like working with him after you said competing against his dad? Has that happened? How often has that happened to you?
Well, you know who they are because they're going to pick the ball off. So his father was the same way. So you're definitely conscious of it. I think I was talking to Art about talking about the flag football candidates, and I think his name was one of the names come up. I mean, he'd be on my flag football team too. So I mean, he could play. Hell, I'd play him on offense just because of his skill set. But he's a very talented young man.
Who else do you have on that flag football candidate list?
I think you got to go now, right?
You got 2 years. You got some time.
Mike, you've talked to us about things like GPS monitoring and some sports science type of stuff. Is that something that you've always kind of leaned into, or is there a point in your coaching journey that you started to explore those kinds of topics a little bit more?
Very fortunate to come up in some excellent programs. Worked for great organizations. Been around people, my whole career that were forthcoming, and been exposed to a lot. But as a head coach, I frankly look at it as part of your job responsibility. Those are tools. GPS is a tool. Sports science is a tool. But still, it's a people's game. I think we got to be conscious of that. I'm not going to. GPS is part of the evaluation. It's not going to drive every decision that we make. That's not realistic. The human part of this is, I think we want to refer more to the steel mill operation than we do to the GPS. So that won't change here. Never will. But those are really good tools that I've been exposed to and just have used them and have history, and now be able to do it in 3 places. So you have criteria that you're able to interact with both the trainers and the strength and conditioning coaches, and it has served us well. I think we've clearly, I know first using it, I'm going to say 20% was the number that kind of jumps out at me. Just when you look at practice and you try to reduce the fatigue injuries, we were higher in my earlier days as a head coach, but I think it was probably more of a product of how you trained back then too. You practiced a lot more. You had more team meetings and so forth, and you can see that just in the practice reps. So blessed to coach in that era as a head coach, because you know how many reps. You say if you get 1,100 reps as an offense during a season, you try to emulate that in your training camp. So and now that's opportunity does not exist, because of the limits, But where do you get those reps? And that's where the mock game's important. That's these mock games, and the quarterbacks are critical in the offensive line. They're critical in these mock game situations because they control the tempo and the pace and the pre-snap part of it. So these are really quality reps that we get in these mock games, and it still keeps me hitting the totals that I'm comfortable and used to training a football team. So, so just been fortunate to be part of the old age, you know, in the 90s, 15 days in a row, 2 days in pads, you know. I'd go to jail today if I tried to do that, but you know, but just to have the understanding of what that looks like and how you do that, and just try to, you know, practice safer.
Mike,
Last one.
you've given Dalen Everett some challenging assignments all the way back to OTAs. Obviously, DK kind of got him yesterday. What do you look for in a young player in terms of response to a moment like that?
Exactly what he did. I mean, that's what you want. It's a, you know, it's a 7 route. He's holding his leverage, and you got 2, you know, extraordinary athletes going to keep competing, you know, making plays on the ball. And that's you know, to me, that's a high quality rep because of the big play importance in our game. You know, you have to make those plays, and you know, obviously you can see the trust Aaron had in DK to where he put the ball, and you know, DK won that battle. So you can't get enough of those reps, you know, for all of our guys. But yeah, he's, you know, he doesn't look like a rookie. I've been impressed with him.